Hello, I'm going to be talking to you about the AUKUS agreement. What's the AUKUS agreement? Some of you may be asking. Well, it's the Australia, UK and US who are clubbing together to make some sort of a front against China in the Far East. Australia, of course, is at the cutting edge of it, so that's very important. And Australia is under threat as well, as are many of the countries in that area surrounding the South China Sea. All right, so it says here the US, UK and Australia are setting up a trilateral security partnership aimed at confronting China, which will include helping Australia to build nuclear-powered submarines. Now, the initiative, called AUKUS, was announced jointly by US President Joe Biden and Prime Ministers Boris Johnson and Scott Morrison. Boris Johnson of Britain, of course, and Scott Morrison of Australia. Joined virtually by video conference, they presented it as the next critical step in an old alliance. And this is the sort of thing I've been wanting to hear for years, a coalition of the Anglosphere, because, well, let's face it, sorry you chaps who are watching this on the European continent, but the fact is that it's the Anglosphere that's done the most for the world in the past 300 years, either the Brits or the Americans. Now, you can say both of them made mistakes. Show me any human being or any human organisation that hasn't. But in general, they have brought more to the world than had ever been brought before by an empire, except maybe the Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great. But yeah, that's quite a while ago and a different setup. The point is that it's the Anglosphere that put an end to slavery. It's the Anglosphere that exported technological improvements, which has made all our lives better everywhere in the world, right across the planet. And it's the Anglosphere that has done some damage. On balance, I'd say the Anglophere's done more good, but that's my opinion. Okay, so this agreement will certainly help protect Australia, but what interested me far more than that, well, look, it's been made obvious we can't rely on the US. That's a terrible thing, but it's the obvious truth. However, I'm sure, sorry, dog petting time. Sorry about that. What are you saying? Are you worried because I'm getting all whipped up about something? I think he's come to comfort me because he thinks I'm upset about something. No, I'm not. I'm very happy. Okay, look, enough now. I've got work to do. Yeah. My constant and faithful shadow. Right, that's his comment on it. Now, where was I? Oh, okay, never mind. I'll just carry on with the main point. One sentence leapt out at me, and it was this. The initiative called AUKUS was announced jointly by US President Joe Biden and Prime Ministers Boris Johnson and Scott Morrison, joined virtually by video conference. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that this was probably started by Trump, although Trump will probably get very little credit for it, because these sorts of things take a while to develop. It wouldn't surprise me at all to find out that Trump started this and Biden is just going with the flow. And I'm surprised that he's continuing with it, but perhaps even through his addled brain, the dangers of China are starting to seep through. But do you realise how significant it is that they said that they were joined together in their meeting in a video conference? This is why I actually disagreed with the EU, by the way. You see, I've been one of those fortunate people who got into the computer world much earlier than most. We, as a family, we were on a sort of internet around 1978. Yeah, when everyone, including me, was operating computers by learning how to control things in BASIC. But even so, we had a sort of email system that was just within the university community. And there was a lot of chat going on there because of that, and references. You know, I could email somebody in a certain department if I needed some information and ask them about something. And there wasn't this avalanche of emails at the time, so you got answers. By the time Berners-Lee came up with the World Wide Web, which was as late as 1990, I was well ready to take advantage of it, and I knew what it meant. And while Margaret Thatcher tussled with the rest of the political establishment about the EU, I was already thinking that the EU was an idea that had already had its day. It had reached senility before it had even got into its youth. You see, it had been developed by men born in the 19th century, with ideas about goods and services travelling by, well, horse cart mostly, and train if you were really lucky. And there was some people had telephones, but not many, and telegraph, and those were the only ways of communicating. So it made sense that contiguous countries should join together to work together. The problem was Britain. It had never been part of Europe. There had always been a separation between Britain and the continent of Europe, and for a number of reasons which were as much cultural as geographical. But Britain really isn't part of the European body. It always had a lot of deep connection with Europe, but it had more connection with its dominions than with the rest of Europe. And actually, I'm not just talking here about Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the other little islands. I'm also talking about India, because whether the Indians like it or not, they have a system which was gifted to them by the Brits. The railways and the bureaucratic system. And it was a system that enabled all the states to be governed by the same government. They call it the world's largest democracy. It has its problems, obviously. But the fact is, it would have been far more fragmented if it hadn't been for the British, well, you can't call it an invasion, because in a lot of cases it was actually at the invitation of the rulers. But yeah, the British administration there, the Raj. Okay, notes. What else did I want to say? Yeah, well, of course, there is. I can't find it in my notes, but I do remember that France is absolutely hopping mad, because they had made an agreement with Australia about providing them with submarines, and they were diesel electric, I believe, and the technology for making nuclear submarines is going to come through Britain. So this is obviously something that Britain could not have done if they'd still been in the EU. And this would have benefited France, but it would probably not have benefited Australia, because diesel electric is now very old-fashioned. I mean, there could be an argument for it being more reliable or something. I don't know the technical ins and outs, but frankly, it's nuclear submarines that the Australians need. And yeah, the EU has had its day, and the sort of symbology, the symbolism of the EU, the idea of the EU is about as outdated as those symbols of Soviet progress. You know, they had a lot of hammers and cogs and things, which at the time were the height of technology and are now museum pieces. Okay, so, well, that's what the EU is, and I'm afraid that the French have been given a bit of a black eye on that one, because they've lost the sale and they're not that happy about it, and I can't say I blame them, but that's the way things are. And the future really is that countries at least for Britain, countries in the Anglosphere will get together and form a coalition, and they'll do this in the modern way, over the internet. This has brought these places together in ways that were not envisioned when the EU was set up, and now they are going to really power forward. I'm sure of it. I just hope that New Zealand, which obviously is under the spell of China and has opted out of this, a bunch of idiots, the sooner they get rid of that Arden woman, the better. And Canada too doesn't seem to be in on this. They'll come round in the end. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.